Hello, everyone. I'm Annalisa from the team behind Parlay, and welcome to our webinar on Parlay Seminars. So before I jump into kind of what we've done with Parlay Seminars, I'll first just do a brief overview of Parlay, because I know there are some people that were interested in this that maybe are a little new to Parlay, so I'll start with that. Our general thesis is that student-driven discussions prepare students for a successful life. They prepare students with the really important skills to go out and do great things, whether it's sitting around the dinner table and having a really in-depth conversation, or participating in the democratic process, or maybe even being a part of any sort of decision-making process with a group of people. Discussions are a really great way to prepare students with those skills. Building arguments, integrating new perspectives, building community, and being effective communicators, all of these things occur as a result of spending lots of time on discussions. And so our goal has really been to provide software products to help teachers facilitate these student-driven discussions to the best of their ability. So that's our thesis with Parlay, and with that we've put together kind of a whole discussion platform that helps to make those student-driven discussions easier for teachers. So we have the Parlay Universe, that is the topic library with over 4,000 different prompts rather, and then in that library, we have written roundtable prompts and verbal roundtable prompts that you could actually use as activities on the Parlay platform. So the written roundtable can be used online or in class, and could be synchronous or asynchronous. So we see a lot of different ways that it's used. As I'll show you a little bit later in our Parlay Seminars courses, we're using it in an asynchronous way, but a lot of teachers use it for kind of like silent debates in class. And this is the activity that's really good for getting your quiet students to kind of jump into the conversation. We also have the verbal roundtable, so that's a good way to finish off the week, or get everybody to start sharing their ideas out loud after they've already built a degree of comfort with the written roundtable. And then at the end, there's tons of different data analytics and visualizations that you could use to reflect on, both as a teacher, but also as a class, and have students reflect on their own participation as well. And with that, you can integrate into a whole bunch of different learning management systems. The most popular one, of course, is Google Classroom. Most teachers are using it with Google Classroom as they roster their classes, post as assignments, and then, of course, transfer all the grades back as well. And then most recently, we've integrated the Parlay Genie, which is basically using ChatGPT or OpenAI in the background to help generate higher order thinking questions, generate initial feedback for students on their writing, get final feedback on overall engagement from the teacher, and then to generate summaries and follow-up questions as well. As a way of leading up to, why we decided to run this test on discussion-based courses, we've been doing this. We've been running Parlay now for like 7-8 years. Over the years, we've learned a lot of different ways that teachers run discussions, and obviously we've built this platform that has different types of discussions, and our belief is that discussions are one of the best ways that people and students specifically learn. We've seen lots of teachers over the years run their entire courses on Parlay. And so it kind of inspired us a little bit to explore, could we run entirely discussion-based courses with a kind of weekly sequence of written and verbal roundtables? And so we came up with the idea of Parlay Seminars. And the goal is to really inspire and kind of encourage deep thinkers, strong communicators, and capable humans. So they're 4 to 6 week kind of mini courses where teenagers will read a classic novel or look at a current event, and they'll participate in student-driven discussions and really practice those skills that are really important for any direction that their life is heading in. Whether it's government or business or really college, university, any of that, we're preparing them with those skills. So what does this actually look like? The weekly learning experience looks like this. Basically, you start off the week by reading a section of the text. So in our pilot groups, we read The Alchemist, and each week we'd read 50 or so pages. Students would read the pages. They'd think about any questions that they have about the text, and then they would also have a question that they are aware of as they're thinking through and reading this book. So in this case, one of the big themes was fate versus free will. So students got that question that they were going to respond to as they were reading the book, and they're thinking about it as they go. And then the next step is to actually anonymously respond to that big question in the written roundtable. So secret identities were on. They get some time to really articulate their ideas, put together their initial ideas, write down the questions that they have, and then submit them to the written roundtable. And that's done asynchronously, or it was done asynchronously. And then they basically had 2 to 3 days to log on, write their response, read through other responses, give feedback, and then respond to the feedback that they got from other students. And then later in the week, students participated in a live verbal roundtable. So the facilitator goes in, maybe takes some of the key themes that students were really interested in, and comes up with questions, maybe with the help of the Parlay Genie, to generate some discussion questions to dive deeper into that topic area. Now that students have a pretty good foundation of the ins and outs of the initial question, the initial topic that we're exploring. And the live roundtable is also a place, the live verbal roundtable is the place where students can bring those questions that they had about the text and now explore that in verbal format. So these were about anywhere from an hour to kind of 75 minutes. And I ran 2 different pilot groups, and basically one of the groups was super inquisitive, and they came prepared with questions and they had so much to say. Other group was a little quieter, so they required a little bit more prompting and maybe even scaffolding of some of those bigger questions. And then at the end of the week, basically I, as a teacher, would go in and provide feedback on the way students were participating in the verbal roundtable, but also the way that they're participating in the written roundtable as well, and asking questions to really push that reflection. So that weekly learning experience, that kind of whole 5-step process was done week over week for 5 weeks. And that forms the basis of our seminar courses. I'm going to show you what that actually looks like inside of Parlay. So when I go inside of my account here, this was for our group A. Basically, each week there was a sequence. So each week there was a written roundtable and a verbal roundtable. And so if I go into the written roundtable, the way that I set it up was usually maybe a quick little welcome video, a reminder of which parts of the text to actually read, and then the actual discussion question. So at the beginning, we looked at predicting, what do you think this book is going to be about? What are your initial thoughts on the fate versus free will question? And what do you think about this kind of main quote that's on the back of the book? To realize one's destiny is a person's only real obligation. So students started off by responding to those questions. And of course, they came in, they were anonymous to each other, they shared their initial ideas. Some of them were a little short, some of them were a little longer. And so what I learned is that it's probably a good idea to give them some guidelines of how to respond to this. But I was really curious because we had some mixed ages in here. I was really curious how they would respond to that initial assignment without those guidelines. And so we had some initial feedback, and then basically the summary is where we could go in and see the average comment length, how many people submitted, and we could reflect on some of those really big ideas that came up throughout the book. At the end of the written roundtable each week, what I would do is generate a recap. So a quick summary of the different ideas from this initial discussion. And then I would come up with some follow-up questions that students could kind of think about before they come to the verbal roundtable, and they'd be able to actually come in and respond below as well. And then ultimately, I would turn it into a verbal roundtable where we would actually dive deeper into those questions. So I had some brief instructions, like, think about the questions before the discussion starts, jot some ideas down on your notepad. Reminder, your real name is going to be used because we're going to be hearing you speak. Keep your video on. because inside of Parlay, of course, we have audio and video. So this was a completely online course. Although if you were running this in a physical classroom environment, you would not need the audio and video, but of course you would still want everybody to be preparing their notes and jotting down some of the ideas that they have. And then I also started to outline class goals as well. So the goal was to make sure everybody gets a chance to participate. And I set a goal as well for each person should share at least one new idea, build on, challenge, and question. So just getting them prepared a little bit more for how to contribute to the conversation. And then I had the summary of the written roundtable there as well. So if students were, maybe they did it earlier on in the week, they kind of forget, they could look at that quick summary and see that there. So we ran our discussion. Again, this was usually about 60 to 75 minutes. And then the summary at the end, we could reflect on as a group and see the types of contributions and how students were participating, as well as the direction of the conversations as well. Alrighty, well, I did put together a brief compilation of what it sounds like to be in a Parlay discussion. And so I'm going to play that now. That is just kind of like a compilation of the way that students were contributing to the conversation and the way that they were even just using some of the language naturally that was inside of Parlay, like new idea, challenge, build on, and question. So that was really great. And even using some of the sentence stems that are inside of Parlay as well. Of course, you as a teacher can edit those. I keep these ones mostly the same, but sometimes teachers like to add a little bit more specific sentence stems as well. And so with that, basically we ran 2 pilot groups and the feedback was really, really great. Overall, students really enjoyed it. Most students said that they wanted to take another course like this. And so we decided to open up 8 new courses for this summer and fall, both as summer school, but also maybe after school enrichment, or for students who are homeschooled as well. And basically you'd get students would be put into a group with 10 to 12 other students, and they'd get to participate in this experience where they get to read the book and then participate in a series of discussions each week to dive deeper into those themes. So in terms of which courses we are offering, we have them here at parlayseminars.com, and we have 1984, The Alchemist, we're doing Gatsby. We've also put together one on the election, so taking some of the big ideas around the election, the big issues, and then each week diving deep into those specific issues. So for example, economic policy or climate action, immigration, healthcare, and really have a thoughtful discussion about different perspectives and different ways forward, potential solutions. So I'm really excited about that one. We'll also be running Lord of the Flies, Frankenstein, Brave New World, and we'll be doing as well a global headlines course, which is essentially current events that will run after the election. So looking at all of those similar ideas, but maybe outside of an election context. Last but not least, we're also running for teachers the Parlay Instructor Summer Course. And so what this is going to look like is very similar to the process that I mentioned about how the students went through that program. But instead of reading an actual book, we'll be looking at an actual piece of research or an example of a discussion on Parlay or other kind of stimulus that is going to prompt our own thinking to dive deeper into the theory of discussion-based courses, some of the research, and then how you could actually use different strategies and how you could run them better in your own classroom. And so we're going to explore the connection between discussion-based learning and some of those kind of other teaching philosophies and the learning research that we know. We'll share experience and strategies, so you'll be able to learn from the experiences of other people. Even if you're new to Parlay or you're a veteran, I think that there's room for both types in this type of course so that we could learn and kind of share experiences with discussions on Parlay or not. We'll reflect on the challenges that often come up when kind of moving to a more observer role that's necessary in student-driven discussions and what that feels like and how you can kind of mitigate those things. And then we'll also look at utilizing the data in Parlay, how to assess discussions and how to provide feedback as well. So for anybody who's at a school that has a license, this is free to sign up. And then, or if you have an individual license, it's also free to sign up. If you're not, then we will. It'll be $120, and then we'll include your parlay license for the year ahead in that as well. So I have a Google form that I will send out to everybody afterwards if you'd like to sign up for this. We have a few spots left in our spring cohort, which will be beginning 2 weeks. And then we're also running a summer cohort that will start at the beginning of July. So in both cases, they're 5 weeks long. You'll be paired with a group of 10 to 12 other instructors on parlay across the country, maybe even some different country contexts as well. And that's all. That's Parlay Seminars. I'm curious if anybody has any questions about what I've shared so far, or if you want to learn a little bit more about any of the areas that I kind of jumped through today.